YouTube is crazy. YouTube is funny. Facebook.
Uh-oh. Drink champ to the building. What do you want me to do? So we're gonna. I'll need to be on. I need to be on.
We'll get some support.
I can stand. That, man. Let me get over here. You can't cuss on this, can you? I hope not. You got a whole elected official on here.
Y'all know nothing about this music. It's my time. It's my time.
We have cheers for you, bro.
That's my beer.
Cool. Thanks. Saying it? Oh, all right. I thought you got something to say. Don't mention nothing about that. No, we're not talking about that. All right, good.
Bring it out there.
Look at this crew. It's the best you can do.
It's actually scary. You gotta watch what you say.
Like,
This is not our phone call, ladies and gents.
they got me and Cliff on the radio.
I need to separate you.
It's us who's ready.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Brian Singer, and we're here on No Static Radio. I want to we have a great group with us today. I want to introduce the people here. No Static Radio. We don't do static. We showed up for the noise. I want to introduce.
Who got their phone rolling?
Good. All right. Perfect. So, yes, sir. I just want to make sure that everyone knows who's here with us today. We have a great group of guests that we're hosting today, and I'm my co-host. We have Courtney Mosley.
Hey everyone, we bring the static.
And we have Michael Bowen.
How you doing, everybody? Michael Bowen, government relations attorney at Calfee, Halter, and Griswold. Been in politics for pretty much my entire life. Looking forward to this conversation.
All right, thank you very much. We have State Representative Terrence Upchurch.
What's up, everybody? Brian, thank you for having me on here. You know I must really love you, brother, if you got me on the radio on a Saturday afternoon. Now, I noticed that the parking wasn't free out there. You gonna run me my $10 for parking?
It is free. Parking was free. It's free.
Parking is free.
Got hustled by the old man?
No, okay, all right, just making sure. All right. No, but I'm really excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. We have Clifton Williams.
What's up, everybody? Clifton Williams from Taft Advisors, also a government relations professional. Glad to be here with this motley crew.
And last but certainly not least, we have.
We have Alex Wilson with us tonight.
So nice to be with you all. This great group of individuals. Alex Wilson, been a part of politics for 5 years now. Looking forward to a great conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you. We have a great conversation scheduled here today. We're talking a little bit about OH11, but before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about the people at the table and kind of what they do and what their role was in this congressional race. So I'm going to start to my left with Michael Bowen. Talk to us a little about OH11. What was your capacity on the campaign?
I had a unique role where I really was not on the campaign. I've known Chantel for years, and in fact, as a funny aside here, Chantel actually ran against my mother for her county council race many, many years ago, and I got to know her very well and thought it was important to play an active role and help make sure that the race was fully funded. So I did a lot of work on the fundraising side, and to the very end, I just helped make sure that the train stayed on the tracks.
Okay, the train stabilized. I like that. We have a lot of political professionals here, and then we have Clifton Williams, who's involved, I believe.
I was definitely involved, and I think for all of us, let me start off by saying that everything we say today is not affiliated with the campaign at all. These are our own opinions, but for me, I served as a consultant on the campaign. So with that, I've been in OH11 politics for over a decade now. And so my job was to just advise on people, places, and things to make sure, like Bowen said, that the train's on the right track.
And State Representative Upchurch, were you involved in the campaign or just endorsed the campaign?
Sure. So I wasn't involved with the campaign directly. I did endorse Chantel. I think I might have been one of two of the members of the Collier County State House delegation that endorsed Chantel. I did not have an official capacity with the campaign, but what I did to help her was I certainly organized in my district, got the vote out. She needed me to lead a canvas. I led a canvas. I led phone banks. Pretty much did whatever she needed me to do on my end to help her get the vote out in my district, which is obviously crucial to getting her to win this special election.
And again, I'm Brian Sickert. I'm president of the Northeast Ohio Young Black Democrats, and we were able to endorse Chantel and deploy people who needed to help her out in that capacity. So it was a great opportunity to be out there with Chantel, help her get elected, and we ultimately achieved victory given all of our efforts. It was a great thing to see. So it was a hectic election. There was a lot going on. I want to talk a little bit about what was going on with that election. What did you guys see out in the field? I just want to chime in OH11. What were your thoughts going into that race?
I think this race was the battle of the Titans. Obviously, I think there were 7-8 people total in the race, but we all know this was a campaign with Nina Turner versus Chantel Brown. We had someone who's had a lot of success outside of the state of Ohio, mostly, in Senator Turner's affiliation with Senator Bernie Sanders and his campaign, which gave her access to a lot of national money. And we had our local hometown county chair for a party. And so I think it was a battle of a national race. Of course, both campaigns did bring in national people at a certain point, but it became one of the largest races that we could have.
You know, I'm going to piggyback off what Clifton said. I mean, I think when you look at this race, at least here at the street level, I mean, it was obvious that both campaigns had machines, right? If you look at what Senator Turner was able to do, she was able to come in, mobilize, and gain a significant amount of support here locally, which, you know, I think, you know, helped her run a formidable campaign. And to Chairwoman Brown's credit, I mean, she was able to do the same thing. A lot of her support was local. I think that did make a difference in the end. Now, she was also able to get some national support. She was able to get certain members of the Congressional Black Caucus to come in and support her and campaign on her behalf. And I think in a broader scope, looking at the race, it's clear that, you know, there's something going on within our party, right? There's this mindset of traditional establishment, you know, moderate Democrats versus a more progressive thinking wing. And I don't like to get too caught up in that, you know, because at the end of the day, we're all Democrats. And whether it was Nina Turner or Shontel Brown, when you talk about going to D.C. And fighting Kevin McCarthy and his goons, because that's what they are, you know, you're just another Democrat, no matter how progressive you are, how moderate you are. And you know, I think Shontel can be effective is if she can unite the party here locally and unite the district by the work. You know, I think she can gather enough support where she can grow into an effective congressperson, because I do think she can grow into an effective congressperson. And I thought the same thing about Senator Turner. I mean, obviously I supported Congresswoman Brown, and I'm happy to go into why. But, you know, just looking at the race, you know, locally as I was on the streets, I mean, that's what I saw.
You know, the point I'd add to that is, you know, I had a different view of it more from the what we'll traditionally call the corporate community, the business side of things. And it was pretty clear to me that the business community had some serious concerns about the race, and they were very vested in the race. And, you know, this establishment that, like Representative Upchurch was saying, this establishment versus progressive battle that we had, it was important that the business community chimed in. And, you know, I think ultimately some of that business community support helped really move the race forward and really put it on the national stage, but even more so gave Shontel the resources she needed to be successful.
Thank you guys very much. You know, we talked a little bit about, you know, the progressive versus the moderates and the establishments. What is like the definition of a progressive, and how, you know, what are the progressives of Cuyahoga County, and like how do they differentiate themselves from the moderates and the establishment?
You know, Brian, and anyone here can please feel free to chime in. I don't know. You know, I like to consider myself a progressive. I mean, I'm in a Republican-controlled state legislature, and I fight them on everything. Now, if there's opportunity to compromise for the betterment of my district without bending on my principles that got me elected, I take full advantage of the opportunity. But, you know, I mean, that's a good question. I had a conversation with one of my colleagues the other day, and you know, she was talking to a progressive organization, and you know, they wanted her to run for something, and she said, you know, I was talking to them, and they're like, well, we like you, but you're just not progressive enough. And she's like, I'm not. Is there a checklist or something? So, you know, I don't know. And the consumption and the fuel of this battle between one side versus the other has consumed our party. And let me be clear, I don't think compromise means progressives giving in to one end of the party, or one end of the party giving in to the progressive wing of the party, right? It's finding common ground and being fueled by the work and who we're working for and what we're trying to do, you know. But to answer your question, I honestly don't know. You know, at the end of the day, I think we're all Democrats, and when we talk about working on behalf of our constituents and the people that we represent and fighting against the other side, I don't think they care who's more progressive or who's more moderate. I know when I'm in Columbus, I don't care who's more of a moderate Republican or who's more of a right winger. At the end of the day, I know they don't have the interests of my constituency. Right.
And I think we have to get past this whole progressive, moderate Dem or establishment Dem, whatever you want to call it. When Joe Biden became president, he was known as an establishment Democrat. If you look at his policies, we're close to passing the biggest infrastructure plan in this country's history. We have parents getting child tax credits every month now. These are what would be known as progressive policies. So we have to get past these title things, just be Democrats and get stuff done.
No, I absolutely agree with Cliff. There is no clear definition of what a progressive versus what a moderate Democrat is, and I think it is pigeonholed our, you know, our party in general on getting things done. The infrastructure bill, Joe Biden said something very important. We are trying to pass a very important infrastructure bill, no matter if you your interest as a Democrat or a Republican. Now, at the end of the day, you know, progressives are leaning very toward, you know, the Squad and AOC and Presley. Now, we understand, you know, that's they do a wonderful job in Congress, but at the same time, we have to understand our interests in the city of Cleveland, right? The things that we are trying to get done in Northeast Ohio, as well as Summit County. But all in all, at the end of the day, like Representative Upchurch said, we are all Democrats. And then it's very important to pass legislation that is positive in our districts.
Yeah, and not to belabor a point, what I think this race really came down to more so than establishment and progressive is understanding the district. What does CD11 look like, and what are the needs of CD11, and who is speaking to the constituency of CD11? Because for folks who don't know this congressional district, you would say, oh, it's a urban city of Cleveland district, which it is. But there's also there's a suburban wing of this. There was as we all know, I mean, I don't think I'm sharing any secrets here. There was a real Jewish interest in this district, in this race. So, I think it ultimately came establishment, progressive, you say what you want. That CD11 race said, who is talking to me? Who do I want to go to Washington, D.C. and represent me? And I think, we got our answer a few weeks ago.
Absolutely. I think it probably played a significant difference, being that, Councilwoman Chantel Brown has been in the community, has not left, and she's, been actively engaged, whereas, Senator Turner is coming back from, being on the campaign field with Senator Sanders and his presidential run and everything like that. So she's kind of coming back to the community and reestablishing herself. And I think that, Chantel had a leg up in that capacity. That's great.
And let me just piggyback on that too. Because listen, I'm not taking anything away from Senator Turner. I mean, she has a tremendous body of work.
Oh yeah.
She is a hero at the end of the day, and she has fought for people that look like us in communities like ours. I'm not taking that away from her. I think what made the difference for me is, and let me say, I've supported Senator Turner in the past when she ran for Secretary of State. I worked on her campaign. I had the Run Need to Run bumper sticker. I was all in. But I think, what made the difference for me is as I got to get more involved in local politics and public service, I got to know Chantel Brown more, and I got to know her heart, and I got to see her passion for people. She has two capacities, right? She's a councilwoman, and she's also chair of our party.
Right.
And I have seen her take so much heat and blame for a lot of stuff that's out of her control, and she just took it.
Right.
And she took it with gracefulness and fortitude. Everything. I mean, she gets a lot thrown at her. And I know what that's like, and she still kept her head high, and she still continued to be locked in about the work, and she still remained focused on the people that she represents. Right? She's homegrown. You listen to her story. She started off on council. She started local, and she worked her way up. Okay. And Senator Turner has also. But for me, the working relationship I had with Chantel, I think that made the difference for me. Right. Not saying I couldn't have one with Senator Turner, but I have experience with Chantel. I worked side by side with her during the pandemic, during a presidential election. There was a lot of pressure on her to get the vote out in Cuyahoga County because obviously we were up against forces that, were out of our control. I mean, our last president was something. So for me, I don't want to keep beating around it, but for me, it was the working relationship that I had established with Chantel over the past 5-6 years as I got more involved in public service.
And a specific example of that, and I thought about this as this race was progressing. Representative Upchurch and I had an event for our previous Congresswoman, the Honorable Marsha L. Fudge, and the event was actually over, and everybody in this room was actually there. Chantel Brown showed up after she had been working for Joe Biden the entire day just to show up and show her support.
That's right.
Those little things there mean a lot to me personally, but more so to this district. That just shows how she was as how she was as a party chairwoman, and hopefully how she will be as a congresswoman. And I shouldn't say hopefully because I know that's how she's going to be as a congresswoman.
Yeah. And I think part of our job is to make sure that we hold her feet to the fire. She has her work cut out for her, and she has a lot of work ahead, right? You got to unify the district, and there is a party that is obviously fractured. I believe in her, and but it's our job to make sure that we're giving her all the support to do that, but also holding her accountable in the same breath because I'm a public office holder, and those that support me, that have my back, hold me accountable, hold my feet to the fire, and I would want them to because that makes me a better public servant, it makes me a better office holder. So that's I think that's also our job too. We have just as much responsibility moving forward as Chantel Brown has.
And then, you touched on something that is very apparent, the fracture between the party, between what's the progressive wing and the more moderate centrist.
Sure.
What
can we do to kind of unify the two sides and come together with a party going forward? We've got to make sure that each side is brought to the table, and we have to work together in good faith. That's the only way. Now, whether Chantel Brown stays on as party chair or whether there's a new party chair, I think the focus ought to be what I like to call the five fingers: the Young Black Dems, the Young Dems, the Progressive Caucus, the Women's Caucus, and the Stonewall Democrats, right? The five fingers. You bring them together, we can make a fist that'll strike a mighty blow, okay? We all have our own interests. Each affiliate has their own interests, but each affiliation has something in common. Bring them to the table. Let's build our outreach to our universities. We've got several universities here in Northeastern Ohio, from Cleveland State, the greatest university in the country, my alma mater, Case Western Reserve, Notre Dame College. There are young people right now that believe in Democratic Party principles and values, that want to get involved, that want to create change, that have lived experiences. The party should be a segue for them to get involved and grow and do what they ultimately want to do. You know, I'm in a position where I am because someone young saw something in me and gave me the tools to flourish and be successful, right? And that's one thing, and I hate that this is about to come out of my mouth, but that's one thing that I have to credit Republicans. They nurture their young and they grow their young. They encourage their young. You know, we have a tendency to devour our own, and we tell our young people, well, wait your turn. And then young people have this resentment. Well, you know, the folks that come before us, they don't trust us and they don't want to pass the torch. Well, they do. You just got to come correct, and rightfully so. I mean, these folks worked extremely hard to get to where they are for the betterment of you, to get up there and sit up there and try to take, you know, their spot. So it makes all the sense to come correct. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, Steve, but I think also with that is we have to realize there's also a process. Everyone at this table, to get where we are now, we didn't just show up.
That's right.
So when you're 21, 22 years old, straight out of college, saying, I'm going to primary the council person who's been in this ward for 20, 30 years, that's not going to work. That's not about people shutting the door on you, people not letting you in. This is about making sure you do the things necessary to get to the position that you want to be in. You got to knock on doors. You got to make phone calls. You got to support candidates. And guess what? You got to form relationships. And coming out of nowhere as a young person, 20s, 30s, 40s, and saying, I'm going to primary this long-term person, that's not the way to form a relationship with them to get that mentorship to be the next in line.
That's right. And just to, again, to piggyback off what Cliff said, and I don't want to turn this into the Terrence and Cliff show. This is the last time we talk, but he's absolutely right. I mean, do you know how many parades I walked in, and how many doors I knocked, and how many phone calls I made, how many banners I held up, how many yard signs I put up? I remember there was one time I was out at 3 o'clock in the morning with a good friend of mine who's a Cleveland City councilman. He has a pickup truck. We had about 400 yard signs in the back of his pickup truck. I'm hopping across back and forth, 271, sticking them yard signs out, right? So I'm learning the grassroots ends of campaigning. And then I remember there's another time, this same councilman, it was in the middle of a blizzard, right? He came and picked me up from my house with salt and snow shovels in the back of this truck. And I'm like, what are we about to do? And he's like, you know what we're about to do. We're out there shoveling driveways for our district. Not for our district, but for our residents, right? Because these are people that we truly care about the quality of their life, you know, and I owed it to myself and I owed it to them not to just come out of college with a fancy degree and wear a nice suit and talk decent and say, listen, I want to represent you when I don't know you and I have not shared your lived experiences. And even if I have shared your lived experience, I still think it's important, like Cliff said, to put in that work. And these things make you stronger as a public official, and they make you more viable when you do run for office.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
And that's so important, that inclusiveness. It's a nice happy medium. And I know as cliche as it sounds, it's unfortunately that exclusion is what creates a separate wing within the party. We don't feel included, so we need to create our own segment. So you have to find the go-between between let us hear you, but then you still have to make those relationships, foster those relationships, and put in the work. And I think that is one of the ways that we can foster that relationship and actually make a strong Democratic Party instead of it being Republicans versus Democrats type A, Democrats type B.
I agree. And the last part I would add is, it's important, and I think it's the responsibility of everybody at this table, and I'm calling them Congresswoman-elect because it's going to happen, to reach out with an olive branch to those progressives and say, look, we got redistricting happening. 2022, let's just be frank, we got to do this all over again. So we need to be a unified front because we don't know what redistricting can look like. And this could become a Republican seat if we're not careful. So extending that olive branch, everybody's got an ego. Look, we get it, this is politics. But kind of extending that olive branch and saying, look, we need to come together. Chantel is our candidate. She proved that. She won. Let's get behind her and let's make sure she has the support and the resources she needs to win again in 2022.
Thank you very much. You brought up something important, redistricting. Just for the listeners, can you guys tell us what redistricting is?
Sure. So, it starts off with the census, right? Every 10 years we have a census. And based upon where we fall in terms of population, we have to redraw maps. We redraw congressional maps, we redraw state legislative maps, and then local municipalities are responsible for redrawing their own maps. So, for example, Ohio is losing a congressional seat. We've shrunk in population, right? Now, we can delve into why we're shrinking in population. I think a lot that has to do with it is the fact that, this state is being controlled by one party, but that's neither here nor there, We can talk about it. But the reality is we are going to lose a congressional seat. Districts are going to look different. And communities may not be represented by folks that have their best interests. Like Mike just said, there's a possibility that, after almost 50 years of this district being predominantly being a Democratic district, being a minority influenced district, that could all slip away. And let me just say how important Black congressional districts are, because this is a direct representation on behalf of the federal government. And that's in jeopardy. Make no mistake about it, that's in jeopardy. Now, I'm not saying that a congressperson that is not African-American will have our best interest to represent us, but again, there are certain lived experiences that I know that Marsha Budge had, I know that Stephanie Tubbs Jones had, and I darn well know that Lou Stokes had, that I had, that you had, you're my cousin, I know you had, and you had, right? So that makes all the difference when you're down in DC fighting on behalf of your constituents. And then on the local level, when you look at the city of Cleveland, Cleveland has shrunk in population. So the same thing is at stake. We're going to lose 2 Cleveland wards. Where are the wards going to, where are we going to lose the wards at? Are we going to lose the east side where the predominant, residency looks like those of us at this table? Or will it be the west side? And if it is on the east side, how's that going to look, in terms of council? You know what I mean? How are these people going to be represented on the council? So, these are things that we need to pay attention to. We need to make our voices heard. We've been fortunate enough to change the process, but we have to remember that one party is still in control of the redistricting process. Even though the process has changed, the party in control is still in control. Okay, now I promise I'm gonna let somebody else talk.
Actually, I have a follow-up question for you, though.
Yeah.
Because you have a unique position with being, as state representative right now. You talk about one party rule that we have in Ohio. Can you talk a little bit about what that's like being in the super minority and how that's constraining the work that you guys want to do and to advance democratic agendas?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's difficult, man. And here's the thing. When you look at my district, I have one of the most impoverished districts in the state of Ohio. And it is gerrymandered. My district goes from the 200 Street Euclid border all the way to Clark Fulton. My district is probably one of the only districts that goes east and west. I don't go north and south, I go east and west, right? So I have some of the most wealthy and affluent families, Brattonall Village, Ohio City, Tremont. And then I also have some of the most impoverished families. The neighborhood of Cottonwood, where I live, where I've lived my entire life, Glenville. And the challenge for me is bridging those 2 Clevelands. And you have to have a state legislature that has the lived experience, sympathetic to the issues, and has a unique understanding of the issues. And unfortunately, the folks in charge of the state legislature come from rural areas that don't understand urban need. And we can just keep it real here at this table. Poor white people in rural areas have a lot in common with poor Black people in urban areas, right? But their legislators don't understand that. And they have this mentality, we're going to take all the money from urban areas and give it to rural areas. And don't get me wrong, they have need too. But the need here is greater because We have infrastructure that's dilapidated, that has been dilapidated. We're you know, facing a shrinking population where we have to do more with less. And the challenge is getting these folks to see and understand. And then the challenges go from a variety of different issues, you know, from guns to women's reproductive rights to voting, right? Now they're coming for the voting. You know, my grandfather used to always tell me, son, he'd say, you know when you see it. I know what they're doing because I see what they're doing. They know why they're coming for voting. And they know why they're trying to make voting hard for us. Voting should be easy, not harder. And there is nothing, you know, well, I can go all day about that, but, you know, I just think that we need to get our people activated, get them engaged, and get them to understand just how important these state house races are, because the city of Cleveland can do a lot of things. They have autonomy. They're a charter city. But at any point in time, the state legislature can step in and say, no, unconstitutional, and they've done it before. Every time the city of Cleveland has passed a resolution to handle, you know, gun violence or gun control, the state legislature has intercepted, right? And another thing, they pick and choose when they want to intercept and when they want to use their authority over us, right? If we pass gun control legislation, then they step in and then they intervene, right? But if, let's just say, you know, funding for an abortion clinic is cut out of the city's budget, you're not going to hear anything. Does that make sense? I know this is an extreme comparison, but it's an example of what they'll do. Now I'm gonna let somebody else talk.
Thank you, Representative Upchurch, for all of that. You know, you made that was a lot to unpack. A lot of this is a lot to unpack. And, you know, one thing that I want to touch back on is, you know, targeting the state representative seats and, you know, getting young people engaged, involved. You know, we have a wealth of political knowledge and prowess at this table, and I kind of want to hear from you guys on what got you guys politically involved. Who mentored you? Who took you under their wing? Who helped you get to where you are today? And I guess we'll start this way. We went down last time. Attorney Mosley.
I am also the secretary of the Northeast Ohio Young Black Democrats, and I'll be honest, I've been a lawyer for the last 8 years. Politics was one of those areas I just shied away from and said it's political unless it was an official race. I went to an endorsement meeting in 2019 that was hosted by the Northeast Ohio Young Black Democrats, and the rest is history. I was just truly impressed in seeing the infrastructure, the ins and outs, and seeing a group that truly mentored and empowered young people to run for office, people who look like me. And I think that's important, especially in this field. In the Black legal field, especially in Cleveland, it's very small. We all know each other. But to see that a little more outside of our courtrooms was a big deal for me. And like I said, the rest has been history.
No, so I'm a very, very long time ago, I was a young intern in college at Fisk University for Councilman Anthony Harrison. He is one of the greatest mentors and one of the great propelling reasons as to why I am so involved today, as well as State Representative Upchurch, who continues to mentor me every single day. One of the first things that he taught me is you cannot pass legislation and hope to see any change if you are downtown and not in your ward. So you cannot understand the needs of your constituents if you are not in your ward. And we were, in fact, in his ward. So service is extremely important to me, whether it's community service, but especially passing legislation, whether that's me telling my friends, hey, you know, there's a primary coming up. There's an extremely important election coming up, because we understand that just voting in presidential elections do not solve our issues, right? Politics in general has always been an exciting arena for me, especially attending Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee, the alum of the great John Lewis and the Cardinal Soldiers from Texas. So those things are really, really ingrained in me very, very early on. But I also like to add voting in general. I missed one election And it was the worst decision that I ever made in my life. And from that point on, I said I'd never miss another election ever again. So, we like to say, well, this election won't affect anything, or this election won't trickle down to my way of life, and that is absolutely false. So I made it my duty to do as much as I can as an active voter in the city of Cleveland, and eventually, reaching those goals to eventually become a politician.
I think for me, mentoring wise, I've had the unique opportunity to be mentored by some of the best to ever do this. Former House Minority Leader, now Chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus, Joyce Beatty. She was my first boss in politics, and she gave tough love. If you messed up, you're going to hear that, but it made you better. After I left her, went on eventually to work for now the Secretary of Housing and Development, Marcia Fudge. Spent 13 years almost with her every day, just gleaning knowledge. And that goes back to what I said earlier, is you have to be willing to put in the work before you get any shot. And folks know, myself, Bowen, Upchurch, we're the first one. If someone calls and asks for help, we're going to pay for it. We're going to get that advice. At some point, Bowen and I may charge you for it, but we'll give you some for free at first.
That's today.
Well, for me, I had always had an interest in government and politics, but I never knew if I wanted to work behind the scenes on the bureaucratic side or be an actual public office holder. I can remember at an early age, watching CNN with my grandfather and talk about current events from Elian Gonzalez all the way to the first 9/11 bombing in '93, not knowing what was going on, but just, going back and forth and having conversations with my grandfather about it. And I guess that interest followed me. And, when I got out of college, I had the opportunity to meet some very influential people that helped mold me to be a public servant. Because I don't look at it as being a politician. I look at it as being a public servant. I had the opportunity to, I've known Mike Polensek since I was a kid, who's on Cleveland City Council, longest serving Cleveland City Council. I've known him since I was a kid. Wealth of knowledge. And then I met Anthony Harrison, who's also on Cleveland City Council. And that is when the investment really began to happen. A lot of the tools to become an effective public servant and relationship building, he taught me. And I had the opportunity to work on several campaigns. In fact, the first campaign I worked on was on Jeff Johnson's campaign when he ran for Cleveland City Council. Then I had an internship with Jeff. And a lot of my early campaign experiences were because of Jeff Johnson. The first presidential campaign I worked on was because of Jeff Johnson. And, one thing that Jeff would always tell me when I was an intern, this internship is what you make of it, right? And Cliff mentioned tough love, and that is how you really groom effective public servants. Because, as much as I love Anthony and as much as I love Jeff Johnson, they have pulled me in back rooms many a times and lit into me. They've called me, wee hours of the morning, many times and lit into me. And I think we all understand when we're getting tough love and when, getting cursed out is coming from a place of love, right? I think we all understand that. We're all able to decipher the difference, right? And I never took it that way. And even now, even as I'm an elected official, I never stop allowing myself to be mentored and to be tutored, right? Even now in the legislature, I'm still learning as I go, and I still lean on Jeff Johnson for his counsel because he served in the legislature, right? He knows the inner workings and the ins and outs of the legislature. Another mentor that I have, is Kevin Boyce. Kevin Boyce is Franklin County Commissioner. He's been very helpful with giving me insight on the inner workings of the legislature and how to navigate through those channels, because it can be difficult to navigate through those channels, and it can be difficult and discouraging, especially when you have the best intentions for your people, but you have an extreme right-wing majority that wants to squander everything you're trying to do, right? And that's something that I always tell young people that come to me and that want to get involved in politics. Don't ever stop learning, and don't ever shut out people that are trying to look out for you and give you tutelage and mentorship. And I also always, when young people reach out to me, I always mentor them. If they want it, I'm here for you. And I think, especially as a man of color, being only one of 5 black men in the state legislature in the House, I have a responsibility to the hundreds and thousands of young black men all over the state of Ohio to look at me and see everything that they want to be and everything that they can be. So it's my responsibility to mentor them if they want that mentorship and tutelage, right? Because that's what was given to me. So that is a long answer, and I know I'm taking over the show, and I'm really not trying to, but the conversation is so good. You know, I'm just really engaged. But yes, to answer your question, I mean, that is, what got me into doing this work.
You just practice your stump speech. We know.
Right. Right.
So I got a I don't want to say very different. Probably my view is more similar to Clifton's. I never wanted to be in elected office. My mom was in elected office, and I kind of saw the inner workings. I said, that's not for me.
Money.
Yep.
I'll plead the fifth on that. But I saw that you could be as equally, if not, frankly, more influential behind the scenes and having conversations and educating the Terrences and educating the, you name it, elected officials on certain issues, on politics and public administration. But I mean, where I think we are all unique at this table is we started from the bottom of politics. And I think it's very important to start from dropping literature. I mean, I learned more from the losses I've had in politics than I have the wins. And I mean, I've had the labor unions cuss me out. I've had the congresswoman cuss me out. I mean, I've had a lot of people cuss me out and come at me, but I started from the bottom. What I can't stand about this generation. You got me started on this. I'm sorry.
Come on, Mike. Come on, Mike.
I've been tame for too long. There's so many people who walk in, and when I ask you to go walk, you ask me, how much are you paying? I didn't get paid till politics since I was in my 30s. I mean, it's just the honest truth. I still do a bunch of stuff for free. In fact, I probably spend more of my time doing free politics than I do paid politics. Like the paid side makes up for some of that. But in all due respect, starting from the bottom, and there is, for the first time in a long time, I'm hopeful because there are a group of folks who have all sides covered. Cliff and I aren't in elected office, but if Brian came to me tomorrow and said, hey, man, I want to be a lobbyist, tell me, help me there. You got it. Then you got your elected officials like Terrence, who can put the elected official twist on it. But I mean, because when we were coming up, to Terrence's point earlier, I mean, my mama was elected, so she helped me. But outside of that, I was seen as a threat. I mean, I got a law degree. They're like, uh-oh, what's this young man trying to do? He got a law degree. Why is he trying to run for my seat? I don't want your seat, man. I just want a seat at the table. So I would say that, essentially being able to work, come in and work, show up. I can count numerous times when we've had lip drops for certain people. To be honest with you, nobody at this table need to be doing lip drops anymore. I still go do it.
That's right.
And I got somebody younger than me who doesn't show up. That's a problem. I mean, we'll use a Marinette Blackwell. I was out every Saturday for her when she was running for mayor. Didn't get nothing from it but the satisfaction of watching a black woman become mayor of the city of Maple Heights. There are folks I called to show up first. Didn't show up for not a single lip drop, but they was there to drink and eat during the celebration party.
Right.
Those are the folks I can't trust. Those folks I talk to them, but when it comes down to the real business that needs to get taken care of in politics, I don't call them. So, I guess I'm not really answering your question, but the point is, I got my education by doing, not by talking, not by being cool. Yeah, it's cool to hang out with Terrence, but that's not it. It's more than that. It's going to lip drop for Terrence. It's going to make sure he gets reelected. It's okay to continue doing that. So I'll stop there because I can go on. That's
So you mean it's not about taking photos with Terrence?
yeah.
I got to piggyback off that because, Mike makes an excellent point, man. I think, for me, the best political education I ever got was in the streets of Cleveland. Okay, don't get me wrong. I got a great education at Cleveland State University, but everything that I've done in public service and everything that I ever will do in public service came from the streets of Cleveland. I don't have a fancy last name. I don't come from a political family. I didn't get a fancy education. But rest assured, I'm the first, last, and the only upchurch that will ever sit on the floor of the Ohio House as a member. And nobody can take that away from me. And, I tell people all the time, I mean, this business is very competitive. Nobody's going to give you anything because you got all these fancy degrees and all this other stuff. You got to be willing to put in the work. So I just had to pick up what Mike said.
We appreciate that. Yeah, I got my start when I was like really young. I might have been like 10 years old. I remember during the Strickland campaign, my dad picked me. I was like really young. He said, "Hey, we had to go canvass for Ted Strickland." I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what. I didn't know anything about politics at this point. I knew it was boring. I knew I didn't want to go knock doors, but I could be playing video games. But he said, "No, it's important. You'll understand later." So he picked me up. He had me come knock doors with them and everything like that. And I didn't really like it. But then, like, my mom ran for judge, and then we were doing the same thing. And when I saw the fruits of the labor, when I saw my mother get elected to the Cleveland Municipal Court, when I saw like the things that we're doing to really make influential change across our city, it really made me appreciate it a little bit more. So I went to Ohio University. Fast forward a little bit, I majored in political science. I knew that when I return back home, I'm going to make sure that I can be a part of the change that I want to see in the community. So one of my first jobs in politics, I worked as a campaign staffer for Hillary Clinton. I got a wealth of knowledge in that campaign. Obviously, it didn't work out the way we wanted it to, but the connections that I made, one of them being with Gabrielle Jackson, the former president of the Northeast Ohio Young Black Democrats. I want to give a shout out to her. She pulled me to the side and said she wanted me to become a member. I became a member. Next thing you know, I became the treasurer of the organization. And then when she ended up moving to Massachusetts, I was appointed president. So, connection I made with her, several elected officials throughout the, Cuyahoga County, really, a lot of people pulled me to the side and took me under their wing and, kind of showed me the way. I met founding member of the Young Black Democrats, Clifton Williams. He's one of them. And he's like Terrence said, he's one of the people who'll get you together. If you need to be cussed out, he got a good one for you. He will make sure that you are thoroughly cussed out, but it will be better for you. You'll learn from it. Because, iron sharpens iron. So, I think that in this political field, working with Clifton Williams, Terrence, I've been forged by fire. And I think that, it's really to help me become a better political operative and move in the way that I'm moving now. Before we go to the 5 o'clock break, I do want to introduce, we have two great people here joining us today. We have a Garfield Heights mayoral candidate.
Shayla L. Davis.
I want to give a shout out to Shayla Davis, candidate for Garfield Heights mayor. And then we have over here
CEO of Birthing Beautiful Communities, Jasmine Long.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you guys for being here as well. I want to feel the same question to you guys. How did you guys first get involved in politics? What gave you the political bug, and why? What made you guys active and engaged in the community?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having us. My undergrad degree is in political science with a focus on the U.S. Constitution and civil liberties. I thought I was going to go to law school when I was undergrad, and I realized that you didn't have to be a lawyer to help people. Sometimes we only think about certain careers of being able to quote unquote help individuals. You'd be a lawyer, you'd be a teacher, you'd be a doctor. And I understood that you can be a social worker and also practice narcotically and help people. So that's how I got engaged in politics. I love working on races and supporting candidates and really being vocal about politics because it really is what shapes us as a community. Pass it to Shayla.
Well, thank you, Jasmine. For me, I've always worked in social justice and equity work. I've been in government for the last 26 years of my career, and I've just dedicated to people, right? Serving people and doing what is just and what is right for them. Honestly, I have to give a super shout out to Michael Bowen. If it were not for him, I would not even be in the position that I'm in now. He encouraged me and also challenged me and cussed me out oftentimes. Over lots of alcohol, but to push me for this mayoral race. And it's a challenge, but I know that I'm here to serve people, and I'm here to serve people with an understanding of how government works, right? And so we need people who are willing to serve and not be self-serving. And that's what we have now. So it's a changing of the old guard. I think in 2021, after the civil unrest and the pandemic, we absolutely have to get involved. The idea is that, I'm just going to be real, Black people don't vote. However, if we show up as registered voters, we change the trajectory of everything that people are saying. The city I live in, Garfield Heights, is not culturally aware. It's still stuck in the 60s, but it's 2020. And so we have an opportunity to change that with a qualified educated and dedicated candidate myself, Shayla L. Davis for mayor. So all I can say is that people like you, the Northeast Ohio Young Black Dems, people like Michael Bowen, Terrence Upchurch, Cliff Williams, Brian Siggers, who is the president, we need those individuals to help to encourage us. No one can win an election without support, period. People talk a good game, but who's showing up, as Michael said, to do that lit drop, that grungy, dirty work? And I disagree. I think everybody at this table should knock on doors because we need everyone to be committed to this thing.
Correct.
This is about us. And the only time we will get change is when we rise up. No one is above the law or too above whatever to participate in this process. And if that means knocking on doors, then I need you to come out and knock on doors. If you want change, you have to be the change. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We definitely appreciate your perspective. While we have the two of you here, Jasmine, could you take a minute to just explain to us a little bit what you do with Birthing Beautiful Communities?
Sure. Birthing Beautiful Communities is an organization in Northeast Ohio. We work in both Cuyahoga and Summit County. We're focused on reducing the Black infant mortality rate. Cuyahoga County and Summit County have had the highest infant mortality rates in the nation for the past 50 years. And things aren't necessarily getting better. And so our role is to provide doulas to work with women to ensure that their babies are not dying. This is one of the most critical issues I think that any mayor, any council person in Northeast Ohio should be focused on, because if our babies are not well, then our communities are not well. We saw what the census results said. We know that Cleveland and Cuyahoga County is one of the largest metropolitan areas, and it's the worst areas for Black women and their health. And if we are living in an area that has world-class health care, and our babies are dying, and our moms are dying, and our communities are dying because of high hypertension and blood pressure and heart disease, we are doing something wrong, and we need to fix what's going on. So that's what we do. We try to work. We are one of only 2 organizations in the state of Ohio that consider to have 0 infant death amongst program participants. And the other organization is Root, which is in Columbus, which is another Black-led nonprofit, grassroots, that is trying to save our birthing people.
Thank you very much.
Hey, bro, I want to say one thing real quickly, back to where we were talking about when you asked kind of some of the fundamentals you got growing up in politics. And there's one point that I forgot, and I know Cliff is going to laugh when I say this, is loyalty. I am an extreme believer in loyalty, whether it's for the good side or not. There may be times Clifton and I are on different teams. I mean, yeah, but we know when it's all said and done, we are friends first. And then, if we got to go to battle, we go to battle. But people respect in politics when you're loyal. What people don't respect is when you flip-flopping and kind of dancing and not really sure, because then that trust factor goes out. So, I thought about it when I looked at this table sitting here. I'm like, okay, this is my team. We've been loyal to each other for a long time, this table sitting here. So that is actually the most important thing, I think, in the fundamentals of loyalty in politics. Because and I mean this is the first time probably in this next year where I've actually seen my friends are getting into office, into politics. I think of a Khalil Sarin in Cleveland Heights. I'm speaking into existence. He's probably going to be the next mayor of Cleveland Heights. Shayla Davis is going to be the next mayor of Garfield Heights. We have Terrence. I mean, these are folks